Hundreds of thousands of compliances are tracked and managed. Over a few million documents of compliance types, whether they are returns, challans, payments, remittances, various evidences of registers and returns are created on our system and their life cycle is managed here. Our customers span over 45 different industries. Different kinds of regulators are included in this list.
At a click of a button or on your mobile phones, you have a clear view of the overall statuses.
This is episode number 28 of MSME Talk with Rishi Agarwal and Sandeep Agarwal on compliance tracking. Welcome back to MSME Talk podcast. MSME Talk podcast is for micro, small, medium enterprises, startups, and entrepreneurs, in which we discuss with industry experts and experienced entrepreneurs on specific value addition guidance and solve queries to help build long-lasting businesses. Compliances is an integral part for businesses. Even small medium enterprises has to gear up themselves to manage compliances like large businesses. Non-compliance can have serious consequences for business, even for small medium enterprises. For example, legal penalties, reputational damage, loss of business opportunities, disruption of businesses, and not only that, risk of imprisonment also is there. Almost 2 out of 5 compliances for business in India can send an entrepreneur to jail. India has 69,233 unique compliances that regulate doing business, including 26,134 clauses that have imprisonment clause. In today's episode, we learn how large corporates are managing these compliances by using technology provided by companies like Teamlease Regtech. This episode is equally important for professionals like chartered accountants, lawyers, company secretary, directors, etc., who are supporting businesses in maintaining the compliances of their SME clients or running risk by non-compliances by their enterprises. In continuation of journey to support SMEs and MSMEs in scaling up and building long-lasting businesses, we are here with another knowledgeable, informational, interesting episode, which is on compliance tracking. Rishi Agarwal is the co-founder and CEO of Teamlease Regtech. Previously, Rishi has been director of the Bank of New York Mellon, a leading corporate investment banking company. He is also a member of the CII task force, and in the past, he has been an advisor to working group of ministers for Government of India. He is an alumni of IIT Varanasi and IIM Calcutta. Sandeep Agarwal is also the co-founder and the director of Teamlease Regtech. Sandeep has worked with PwC India and USA in their risk management and audit advisory. Sandeep is an expert in governance, risk and compliance space. He is chartered accountant and certified information system auditor by profession. Teamlease Regtech is one of the India's leading regulatory technology company, which we call it as Regtech industry. Teamlease Regtech is a subsidiary of Teamlease Services, which is one of India's leading human resource supply chain companies, offering a range of solutions to 3,500 plus companies for their hiring, productivity, and scale of challenges. Teamlease Services is a Fortune India 500 company listed on the NSE and BSE with a revenue of about $1 billion. So now let me welcome the founders of Teamlease Regtech to understand more on the compliance tracking and their product, which is trusted by over 1,500 corporates in more than 45 industries. A very warm welcome, Rishi and Sandeep, on MSME Talk podcast to share with our listeners about compliance tracking and Teamlease Regtech.
Well, thank you so much, Tripti. Really appreciate. Excited to be here and discussing our journey so far with all your wonderful audience.
Tripti, thanks a lot. I mean, we are really excited to talk about our experiences and we hope that these experiences with large corporates do help your SME audiences as well.
So, Rishi, we'll start with you. If you can just share a bit about you. We have already shared a little bit of your professional, background, but could you just share more with us?
Sure. So, Tripti, I think your audience already have a little bit of background on where I started, but some interesting facts which are very relevant to this conversation. How did I end up graduating in technology and doing an MBA and running a regulatory company where I had no academic background on law, right? So, till about 2013, honestly speaking, I didn't know the difference between what an act and a rule looks like and how our compliance is embedded in them, because I was on the other side of the table practicing some of these as an employer in my past stint with the Bank of New York Mellon, and that was my exposure to compliances. But it was complex, qualitatively and quantitatively to many, uh, created a lot of governance, risk, and compliance obligations on the enterprise which I was leading. And that kind of got me excited about the fact that what are the best practices in managing them? Do we have the right technology tools to stay on the right side of the law? Or are we accidentally compliant? And that kind of prompted this dialogue with Sandeep, who was pursuing a different career and comes from a different background. And as they say, best startups are created when convergence happens of people who bring different expertise and so on and so forth. And that's how I got into this whole thing. We started together scanning the landscape, finding areas where we could add value, where corporates are struggling, MSMEs are struggling, and how we could put together a body of work which can actually benefit with our combined experience in the industry. Now, while that is on the professional side, on the personal side, I am a photographer, an avid photographer and traveler. I shoot extensively. uh, I travel extensively based on how time permits. I've recently published a coffee table book titled Varanasi, A Passage to Immortality, with Mr. Arun Saha, who's my co-author on the book. It did very well on Amazon for quite a few, uh, weeks as one of the top sellers in its own category. So overall, that's been a little bit about my professional
Wonderful.
and personal journey.
Coffee table, yeah, that's really interesting thing, yes. Which is completely, different side of someone because we are talking about compliances and these are very serious subject. When we think about governance, compliances, very serious phases, dialogues and discussions comes into the picture. So now let's move Sandeep.
So I think briefly you mentioned about our, where we had spent our careers with. I think, as Rishi mentioned, we were on the other side of the tables. I mean, I spent a decade with Pricewaterhouse as consultants, helping large corporates, specifically on the risks and controls sides. So I have been involved in identifying risks, defining solutions. So the thought was basically how can, you know, solutions be designed for corporates in terms of technology. And I've worked a lot on designing technologies to, solve a lot of problems around risk and controls. Now, when Rishi and I kept talking about areas where we can start our businesses, I think one area that we identified was compliance, although important, but not taken very seriously at that point of time. So in 2013, when we were talking and a Companies Act 2013 came up, then we realized that this will definitely bring seriousness among corporates. And that's where we thought, since not many companies have been investing in this, this is the right time and space where we should come along. So that's how we started this company, with the thought, with a smallest of problem, and being working with the large corporates, we realized that rarely any company would have any idea on the number of compliances that they have to comply with. So I think this one simple problem was where we wanted to work on, so that at least we create a technology platform which help companies understand what they're required to do and give a complete and a clear transparency with respect to how are they performing with respect to compliances in that.
So what is the mission and vision of Teamlease Regtech?
It's a one line vision to help India comply, to make sure that all organizations who are operating in India, whether they are Indian companies, multinational companies, but if they are operating in India, they should stay on the right side of the law, and providing these organizations with tools so that compliance comes naturally. They know what their obligations are, they know the procedures and timeliness required around it, and they can just stay on the right side of the law. That's a one line mission that we have.
Why following up with these compliances is so important for the businesses?
So maybe I can take the first stab at your question. Very interesting question, Tripti. Imagine a scenario where you have thousands of vehicles on a road and there are no traffic signs. Nobody has any idea of how to navigate, when to take a right turn, when to go straight, when to stop, when to give passes to other vehicles on the road. Imagine the chaos that can unleash on the road if all of these situations are not done. Doing business is similar. Anything that you do in business, you need to follow certain rules so that you are on the right side of the law with respect to labor regulations. You're paying on time, you're taking care of your obligations on social security on time, you're not exploiting any human while you're doing this, you're making your financial obligations to the government on time via finance and tax regulations. If you use heavy machinery which can damage humans or which can cause accidents, and you're taking precautions so that the kind of episodes that the country saw during the Union Carbide episode, where thousands were killed because there was no obligation of maintenance on the manufacturer, which is Union Carbide, unleashed itself in 1980s, and we saw misery and tyranny being unleashed across the country at that time. So all of these are examples of why compliance is important. Compliance, just like any other game, you play cricket, there are rules. You play football, there is rules. So when you do business, there are rules. And if you don't follow those rules, then people get hurt, environment gets damaged, exploitation is caused, fundamental rights are violated. And that's why compliance is so important to be integrated in the way we do things so that everything is
That
managed in
sets
an
the
orderly manner.
agenda for us. If I ask you, what are the different types of compliances any business entity has to comply with in India?
So if we try and classify the types of compliances that a corporate has to take care of, we can broadly classify them into 7 broader buckets. The most largest bucket, if we talk about, is labor laws, which is compliances which talks about the responsibilities of employers towards employees. The second bucket is finance and tax laws, which broadly includes direct taxes, indirect taxes, FEMA. You have industry-specific laws, which is relevant to specific businesses, like the compliance relevant to pharma businesses. There are different set of compliance relevant to, let's say, auto companies. So depending upon the nature of industry that you operate in, there are specific compliance that is applicable only for that industry. The fourth bucket, if you look at it, is environment, health, and safeties. There are laws around hazardous materials, batteries, e-waste, plastic waste. So anything which has a direct or an indirect impact on environment uses this broader category on environment, health, and safety. Then you have commercial laws. These are laws around companies who uses lifts and cranes, who uses weighing machines. So there are different equipments which are utilized by companies. To regulate those equipments, you have commercial laws. Then you have laws around local laws, which we call it as gram panchayats, municipal corporations. So these are broader categories of compliances. One more category, which is quite important broadly for every company, secretarial laws, which is governed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And for listed companies, you have SEBI, which is Securities Exchange Board of India. So these are broader categories under which majority of the companies fall.
So, in case if we ask about today's scenario, in your experiences, these compliances are usually executed by the company staff or external professional agencies or individual professionals. These are the only one who are, helping. How is this happening? Because you guys are dealing with so many corporates. What's the practical thing happening?
So it varies from company to company, but based on our experience, we believe that it's basically a mix. And there are several compliances which can be managed by in-house teams by most of the companies. So there are teams internally to take care of these compliances. And there are a lot of compliances which has to be done by third parties. Let's say your audits, just for an example, and audits under income tax, it has to be done by third party auditors as well. Now, it all also depends on the bandwidth that companies has internally and the skill sets that they have employed internally. If they have enough bandwidth and skill set, several compliances can be managed in-house as well. But depending upon the SME requirements and the complexity of compliances that a company deal with, they may choose to either outsource it completely or may have a hybrid model, some part of it done internally and some part of it done externally, depending upon the overall cost. The cost of compliance is also an important factor while a company decides this, depending upon the broader cost that is required to manage it by an external consultant. These are calls that are taken by company.
For larger corporates, it's still easier for have in-house team, but for SMEs, when we are talking external hiring agencies and professionals would be a big support for them too.
So I think majority of the SMEs, if you look at it, this is exactly the model that most of the compliances are outsourced to external agencies so that they can focus on their businesses.
Yes. So, in what kind of spend in managing these compliances?
Now, if you look at a small company as well with limited uh, operations, one factory, one corporate office in any state, I think on an average, 1 lakh rupees per month or 12 lakh rupees annually is what we believe they end up spending. That includes both the cost of in-house teams. These are the salary costs for the time they and the efforts that they spend on managing these compliances, as well as the cost they spend on the external consultants or the payouts to the external consultants.
Got it. Now, when we come to your product line of, Teamlease Regtech, in this compliance entire journey, where does your company's product and services sit in the entire chain of the following the compliances process?
So, Tripti, we have a suite of products. So there is a series of DIY products which are do-it-yourself products which corporates can use for self-service. And then there are a DFM suite of products which is do-it-for-me products that service providers can use and make their compliance processes smarter. On one level, we have a product that helps you track and manage all the compliances across the law of the land, which is used by primarily by organizations which have a specific size and scale. They have geographical spread, they are into one or more businesses, they have one or more establishment types including factory establishments, shops and establishments. They are dealing with a number of products, they're selling these products nationally or in large regional areas. These are the profiles of clients and organizations who have size and scale and complexity of compliance that we can support with our product. Our flagship product is called 𝐼𝐴𝐵𝐿. This is the first product that we built many years ago. Hundreds of clients and thousands of enterprise users are on this platform. Then we built automation capabilities to go beyond tracking and management and to actually manage the life cycle of the entire operation leading to compliance, which includes data processing and eventually creation of a regulatory record. This was done in two broad categories of compliances. I think your audience have just heard Sandeep talk about these two categories. One large category is labor laws, and the second large category is secretarial laws. As we know, labor laws are an important part of the seven categories. Labor is a concurrent subject of the Constitution. Among the 1536 unique acts and rules which govern doing business in India, labor comprises 30% in terms of acts, 47% in terms of compliance.
Okay, got it. So now let me ask you, when you have got into this compliance filing and all, why does a business need a software to track compliances? This is very interesting because you already so many clients of yours are using it, and it's we want to understand it. Why does your existing client using these services? Still, people try to use Excel sheet a lot to save a lot of cost and manage so many things through Excel sheet. And MSMEs and SMEs try to do a lot of things through that. Why do even businesses need something to track compliances?
So it's a simple answer. I mean, Excel sheet doesn't speak to the person, right? You are dependent on your employees to go and look at Excel sheets to do and ensure that the compliance is done on time. So that's the trickiest part, where if you don't end up looking at an Excel sheet or a piece of paper which is pasted in front of your wall, and you end up missing out on a compliance. So objective is that the softwares are used basically for one simple example is to keep reminding you or what you're supposed to do. Excel sheets do not send reminders, right? So this is one of the simplest and smallest feature which keep you on your toes well before the due dates, where they keep telling you that you're supposed to do it in 10 days, and then 5 days again they remind you that have you done it, if you've not, please go ahead, it's just 5 days left. So this is one simple area why Excel sheets are not very efficient way of doing things, where it can be a list, but it can be a list which is getting lost into a lot of files in any of the folders as well.
So I would like to
Sure.
take a little bit of a different approach at this. Technology in general makes life more efficient, simpler, less expensive, and more convenient. There was a time when we could go to the cinema theater and at the window buy a ticket, but we use technology product like a Book My Show to make that life convenient for us. We could just stop by at a restaurant to grab something to eat, but a vast majority of the Indians now prefer to use the Zomatos and the Swiggies of the world to order food. There was a time when I was in IIT and I would wait in the queue at IRCTC office for a few hours to get a ticket back home. Today, including IRCTC, there are many websites which I can use, and in matter of seconds I can buy a ticket. All of these are examples of how technology is penetrating all aspects, all spheres of our life, making it more comfortable, convenient, more efficient. And that's why technology products is what we use all the time. Compliance is no different. A compliance officer deals with hundreds and thousands of compliances. If not for technology products, they will become highly inefficient, and inadvertently they will slide or drift
So
into the wrong
that's
side of the road.
interesting. A lot of connotations and examples related you have given, Rishi. We'll move to the understanding a little more about the Teamlease Regtech. Uh, could you tell about the present status of the business, like in terms of the business numbers, status, how it is doing, the scale of operations?
Let's take a quick break.
MSMEs and startups are looking for various kinds of support and upgrade. Are you a product service provider, expert, advisor, consultant, mentor for MSMEs and startups? Do reach out to MSME Talk to list your business. Check the link in the description.
Sure. So RegTech is still in its nascent stage, Tripti. The word RegTech is still not as well known as fintechs or food techs that are much more well known now. We started a few years ago. Today we service about 1,600 enterprises through various products in DIY as well as DFM mode. Over 25,000 enterprise users use our web and mobile based multi tenant SaaS products on a month to month basis. Hundreds of thousands of compliances are tracked and managed. Over a few million documents of compliance types, whether they are returns, challans, payments, remittances, various evidences of registers and returns, are created on our system and their life cycle is managed here. Our customers span over 45 different industries. Different kinds of regulators are included in this list. That's the current ecosystem that we
Pretty
service.
impressive, corporates, which is more than 1600, more than 25,000 users, and in lakhs of documents and compliances being filed up by these users on a regular basis. Can you define your users? Are these typically corporates or professionals who are servicing these corporates? Uh,
So if you look at currently the space that we're focusing on, we're focusing more on corporates as of now. Uh, in corporates, if you look at it broadly, every department today has to do some sort of compliances. So be it HR department, be it finance department, be it secretarial department, a lot of companies do have a compliance department dedicated these days, where compliance officers are required as per the law as well. Now, from a user perspective, now since board members are also responsible for adherence to all requirements of the law in timely manner, board of members are also responsible, and they are using these utilities as dashboards. So, as management dashboards, and a recipient of compliance certificates will get also generated. So, if you look at departments broadly, every department, and from a user perspective, most of the senior users, including board members, CFOs, CEOs, are interested in utilizing such utilities. So these are the people. Now, we do have some customers today who are on the other side of the table, who are service providers. Service providers in terms of chartered accountancy firms and company secretarial firms, who manage their customers and do provide services to their customers. Currently, these professionals are not utilizing any technology for services. We have designed this utility so that they can also be utilizing technology to ensure more efficiency and accuracy goals can be achieved at their internal ends, and they become more competitive in market when they actually go and reach out to their larger corporates.
So, Tripti, that's a great question. Our product suite is primarily used, as Sandeep indicated, by two classes of customers. One, large, medium to large corporates in a self help mode, and second, MSMEs via service providers. MSMEs typically lean heavily on service providers. Service providers include labor consultants, they include tax consultants, EHS consultants, they include company secretaries. These are typical service providers that help MSMEs comply. We have solutions for labor consultants. They can actually come and use our product today, onboard MSMEs on that product, and create challans, returns, and registers automatically from the system, including variety of additional features that come integrated into the platform. So MSMEs directly benefit when service providers use our product to service them. Medium to larger size of the enterprises with revenue basis of over 50 crores to 100 crores and above, they are typically good targets because they have the complexity, they have a geographical spread, they have more than one establishment type, there are many regulatory requirements applicable to their business, and they demonstrate the complexity where our product, our solution suite, can start helping them stay on the right side of the. Additionally, large corporates, they can bring their entire organization, their secretarial functions, their labor teams, which are their HR functions, their finance and tax teams, their commercial functions, their regulatory teams, and they can start using our product or suite of
Okay, got
products.
it. So basically, a large corporate where the compliances management is too heavy for them, they are absolutely dependent on the softwares like yours. And for the MSMEs and SMEs, they are being serviced by the professionals, and professionals using your software becomes easier to service multiple MSMEs and SMEs through your software. Are you industry focused also? So could you just give clarity on that part?
No. So again, every industry doesn't really matter. Today we have over 50 plus industries using our product. So when you pick up a software specifically for tracking of compliances, it's typically law of the land. So for any company, depending upon size, businesses, location where they are located at, everything that is applicable to them, be it any central act, state act, or local act, irrespective of the regulator, be it a labor ministry or finance ministry or any other ministry, every act, every compliance applicable to that company will be tracked via the utility. So there is no restrictions, there are no exclusions. See, tracking is basically helping senior management get some comfort on
Okay, got
the
it.
overall statuses, right? There is no point tracking partial list of compliance applicable to company. So objective is comprehensiveness.
Okay, got it. Could you share some real case studies of your clients where I would prefer different industry to understand, how they have made use of your software and it has helped the company management and stuff.
Sure. So let me give you some examples here. A large chemical manufacturer, revenue of greater than 1,000 crores, multiple factory locations in the country, more than one entity, private limited entities, one trust, one guest house, and so on and so forth. The company started engaging with us. The trigger was a show cause notice, which was notified to the board. Board took that as a lead, questioned the management on their approach to compliance management, very quickly realized that there were no tools, technology led tools, which were being used. The process was largely ad hoc and manual. It was paper based and people dependent. In any given month, there was no handle on how many compliances were applicable. The company executives started looking for exploring tools. We came up, highly referenced, because one of our customers was engaging with this company. The discussion happened. They quickly realized that unless they use solutions like ours, the issue that they
Hmm.
experienced will reoccur. It's only a matter of time. They engaged with us, signed the product. Under Sandeep's leadership, we engaged in what we call as assessment of applicability of compliances. Our teams sat with them, understood their business, who they are, what they do, where they are located, what are their establishment types, which states are they operating in, what kind of equipment and machine do they use in order to uh, do their manufacturing, which markets do they sell into. All of these are areas that we probed deeper. Based on the answers, we created a list of applicable acts and compliances. We identified all kinds of licenses, registrations, permissions, NOCs, consent orders, various kinds of returns, registers, and challans that this company had to do, created this list, reviewed it with their leadership, finalized one final list, and that was then mapped into the system, and every single compliance line item was tagged to a role of a performer who will do it, another role of a reviewer who will manage that, and then departmental heads and management hierarchy. A compliance organogram was created into the product, and at the end of it, now this client has been with us for a few months. Their executive director gets a report every month saying in this month they had 176 compliances that were applicable, and 168 were done on time, 8 were done delayed. Among the 8 that were done delayed, so many had imprisonment clauses, so many had clauses for severe financial penalties. Now their compliance certificate comes generated automatically based on the frequency and periodicity and the language that they wanted to generate. And at this moment, they have started their journey. They're moving towards a much more mature governance, risk, and compliance program. And as I say, compliance is a journey, not a destination. Every morning when you wake up, you have to start fresh and keep moving in the right direction. So I think they are on this journey, and I'm hopeful that in about 12 months' time, their compliance and risk posture
Got it.
will look
Interesting.
very
Rishi,
different
could
from
you
where they
just
have
also
started.
share something about, because while you were telling about the chemical company, uh, here while two more sectors are coming in my mind. One is real estate and another is pharma, which both are very heavy on the compliances side. Uh, are any of these as part of your industries as your customers? Could you share something?
Absolutely. We work with some of the largest real estate players in the country. You're absolutely right in the fact that real estate does present a fair degree of complexity of compliance management. Any real estate large developer works in more than one site concurrently. Each site is typically set up as a different entity, joint venture, special purpose vehicle because of the land ownership and construction, demarcation of responsibilities and so on. And hence, a lot of these compliances become different for different entities. Quantitatively, the numbers exponentially multiply. So, we have been working with a lot of real estate companies. Again, they have two phases of their life cycle. One is during development and second is post development. The during development requires lot more licenses, registrations and permissions. Lot more NOCs are there for water connection, for electricity connection, for passing of the plan, for getting approvals for construction designs, and so many other things are there. There are different consultants that they employ in order to get these permissions, get things started. There are a lot of safety regulations that they need to follow. They work with a lot of different kinds of contractors, plumbing contractors, electrical contractors, labor contractors of various kinds. And the moment, Tripti, you have so many contractors, the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act of 1970 and the allied rules become applicable. If the contractor fails to do certain kinds of compliances, as a principle, you will become liable, and so on. So, when we work with real estate companies, the challenges are of a different nature. From a regulatory standards perspective, real estate is still going through an evolutionary phase. RERA as an authority and a bunch of laws came in. They are still in their infancy, but along the way, tightening will happen. Consolidation of real estate players will happen in the country. Lot more corporatized real estate players will come up, and the need for higher standards and higher maturity in governance, risk, and compliance will
Got it.
become much more
And
prominent than
what
it
are
is
your
felt right now.
experiences in the pharma sector?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, MSME Talk listeners, hope you have not missed subscribing to our newsletter for the latest news, blogs, podcast updates. Check the link in the description. We don't spam your inbox, and hence we do have one of the highest rate of newsletter opening in the industry.
So I'll take that question, Tripti. Pharma is another very large and regulated sector. Depending on what you are doing in pharma, whether you are doing vaccine manufacturing, whether you are doing contract manufacturing, whether you are manufacturing APIs, all of those or generics, these are various ways in which pharma companies operate in India. There are over 3,000 pharma companies and over 10,000 factory establishments in India which are manufacturing pharma drugs. We had done deep study on pharma at one point in time. A small pharma company, and I'm going to use MSME because we are focusing on MSMEs today. A small MSME pharma company operating in a single entity, single state, with one corporate office and one manufacturing plant, they typically deal with about 998 unique compliances in a given year. 489 out of them, so almost 50% of them, carry clauses for imprisonment. So 998 is only for one plant. We had done some study for larger companies, and we had identified that a company with about six plants typically deals with 4,500 to 5,000 compliances, give or take, depending on the specific nature of the operations that they are engaging in. Now, if you do the math here, there are about 250 business days in a year. There are close to 5,000 compliances. You're dealing with, on an average, 20 compliances a day. Unfortunately, these compliances are not managed by one function or one person. There is no one throat to choke as far as these companies are concerned. There are anywhere between 50 to 200 different users in such a pharma company. They are spread across many factory locations, HR department and IR departments, finance and tax teams. They are spread across secretarial function and commercial teams. They are spread across vendors because vendors are responsible for many of these compliances in an outsourced manner. So you are dealing with approximately 20 compliances a day, approximately four filings a day, and it's non-trivial to manage them in an ad hoc, paper-based, and people-dependent compliance
Very,
program.
very interesting when you're talking about the kind of compliances a corporate in pharma manufacturing has to go through it. Just a big revealing. Wonderful. So if we come back to your product, which is on compliance tracking, so does your software assist with compliance documentation, record keeping, tracking? How does it work?
So, absolutely, our product is a one stop shop when it comes to everything to manage your compliance. The only thing that we do not do is to go and file that item with the regulator. Even that will be feasible in a few years as government strengthens the digital public infrastructure and digitizes via straight through processing and API the filing piece as well. So everything from what is applicable, what is the mandate of the law at union, state, and local body level, procedural items on how to go about doing it, risk associated with contraventions and non-compliances, breakup of the risk in financial as well as non-financial and imprisonment related risks, forms and formats that are required, any additional information that a person should know before they comply. All of these, including an integrated document management system, which is searchable, sortable, including capabilities to download them in various
Lot of
formats.
things actually you have shared. It's a huge list of work which can your software assist in the compliance work. Especially you said about the formats also, documentation also, and the reports also. Now, is there any customization option also? Because we were discussing about different industries also a while back. So some kind of customization in report downloading or in changing in the tracking way, is it possible?
Okay. So, see, irrespective of the type of company, it's not customization, but it's more of a configuration of the type of compliances that has to go. It's more of what type of compliance needs to be, configured to a customer. Once the compliances are configured, be it reporting, be it updation, be it document upload, is the standard utilities, and no need of any customizations based on the type of company or type of industry that comes to us. Now, over the years, the product has matured enough, and that's where it brings out a lot of utilities, which helps large corporates as well as mid-sized corporates as well. We have not seen a lot of customization requests these days from customers because the product itself is offering a lot of features that help companies.
Okay, got it. And since lot of features you have already inbuilt, just Rishi mentioned, कि except filing of the exec compliance, there's a lot of work is already done. So are we talking about a lot of automation capability in the software?
Correct. So I think one of the area, so there are three phases of our products that we're working on, right? One is tracking and management, which is the lowest level where everything that is required to be tracked can be tracked using the platform. Second, we spoke briefly on the automation layer of creating compliance documents automatically based on certain inputs. For that, we currently just have two regulators for which
Yeah.
we have automated it: Labor Ministry
Okay.
and Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is labor laws, and secretarial compliance is what we currently automate. And we are constantly working on more and more regulators so that more compliances can be generated automatically. And the utopia is basically end-to-end digitalization. So once you create a compliance, let's say a return that has to be filed, currently the system cannot file it automatically. So the utopia is basically an end-to-end integration, API-based integration or straight-through filing. Just for example, you must have heard of GST, right? GST has a empaneled GSPs. GSPs are tech platforms which has been integrated with GST portal, and the compliance documents gets created within the GSP's platform and gets pushed automatically to GST platform. So that's exactly what we're trying to do from a long-term perspective for other than finance-related compliances. So GST is, I believe, the first regulator or the second. So I think income tax and GST, these are two broader ministries or departments who have provided API-based
Mm-hmm.
filings, which means that third-party platforms or RegTech players
Mm-hmm.
like us have created platforms which has got integrated to the relevant
Okay.
department's platform. The compliance returns gets generated by the platforms and gets filed
Okay.
automatically. This is only applicable or available today in GST and income
Got it.
tax.
So for the GST and income tax, entire cycle is there of automation till filing. We
Correct.
can say that way. Yes.
Correct. And that's what we're trying to do for the rest of the
Yeah, that
compliance
depends on the
domains.
government and regulatory body how soon they can
Correct.
get into digitization. Okay. Uh, One of the part which you were telling again and again is a report related, and specifically when you were talking about the board members, senior management, kind where they just want to see the dashboards or compliance MIS. Now, these reports, when you're talking about, is it software providing reporting which can be dynamic or is a standard report format?
So when you say dynamic report format, the system do not facilitate designing different formats of report by different customers. Although system has been designed to actually create a lot of reports automatically based on certain codes with graphs, charts, data, table, aging, and all of that. So you can expect system to generate beautiful graphical reports on a week-on-week basis, which will contain as on date statuses. So dynamically, the status is getting updated and a new report gets generated every week. But if you look at dynamic reports, it is not helping you generate your own format. So we have a standard format in which report will come in, which will include a lot of these data in a beautiful and a easy to
So
understand
Sandeep,
way.
could you tell about how the board members and the senior management get help to the dashboard? What kind of information your software generates for them?
For senior guys, I mean, the most important objective for them is to understand where the company stands with respect to compliances, the actual statuses, the number of compliances that are complied, and the number of compliances that are not complied, and whatever is not complied, who has not complied, for how long it is pending, for which location, for which regulator. These are all very easily available on our softwares. So the dashboard highlights crisply the broader overview of statuses, and it facilitates drill down capabilities. So if I am a director of a company, I'm looking at a dashboard highlighting that 10 compliances are still outstanding. I have an option to click that 10 and then go further deep. There are layers where it will take me to, out of these six, how many are critical risk compliances. So then system gives me an option to look at, am I more interested in look at critical only, high risk compliances, medium risk compliances, or low risk compliances. So post that second risk, I can also choose to go in, out of these 10 there are two critical risk compliances, tell me more about that. So then in the second click, system will take me directly to the list of items where I will be able to understand these two compliance relates to which location, which user, which ag, for which period it is outstanding. So it's a simple clickable dashboard where from a enterprise view, I can go on to an act view, location view, or user view as
Okay,
well.
okay. So there are various level, and for the board member or management perspective, sitting at one place through one application, they can have a complete chain of steps for the compliances at which have been done or not done. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
for management, it is very important to know which are the high risk compliances not done. So at any point of time, real time basis, they can track.
Absolutely. And what we have also tried and do via the dashboards, we have tried and given different perspectives of the same set of universe of compliances. So one way of looking at it is the overall status, which is out of so many, how many has been completed and how many is still overdue. Now, for every time I need to understand how am I doing with respect to critical risk, I don't want to get into click one and then go. So perspective wise, we have created different dashboards or different graphs and charts. So one perspective is risk wise dashboard. So there is a graphical representation of overall risk categories. So as a critical risk, how many critical risk compliances, of which how many have been completed, not completed. Similarly, we have a department wise view. So if I want to understand how is my internal departments doing with respect to compliance, so there is a department wise view as well.
Hmm.
So there are different ways of portraying the same set of data in different perspectives, so that I can view it differently, and there are decisions which can be made easier rather than just looking at one dashboard and drilling it down.
Interesting, interesting. From basically, a lot of information is already collected and it is meaningfully presented for the users. So, here we are talking about a lot of data inputs which is happening in this software, which is collection. What's happening on the data security and privacy? This is all very sensitive data getting collected.
At a high level, one can understand that there are strong encryption standards from the point a data moves from your local browser or your local mobile app. It transports over the network and it reaches our servers. There is data at rest and data in motion. Both of them are encrypted with the highest standards of encryption. Who can access, how they can access, multi-factor authentication to make sure when somebody logs in, there is not just ID and password level authentication, there is also secondary level with OTPs that have been introduced. So just in case somebody's ID and password has been compromised, their information is not
Hmm.
compromised, there is an additional layer of check and control which has been integrated. In addition, we have taken advanced international certifications of global practices, including SOC 2 Type 2. We are currently in the process of getting ourselves certified with ISO 27001. We are also implementing some of the best practices in secure code detection. Does our code have any vulnerabilities? Are there any parameters which can create problems in long term? We have very strong web application firewall. We have an internal team which does security operations, patching of various servers on periodicity, making sure that firewall thwarts all the attacks coming from hostile countries. Every now and then we see attacks are being unleashed on India's digital ecosystem from foreign countries, and various other kinds of vulnerabilities. We constantly detect them as the world is evolving and new vulnerabilities constantly take shape. We stay on top of them. Our internal teams highlight them. There is a remediation program in place which ensures that these vulnerabilities are remediated and patched and released into production before they can unleash any damage to our customers
Pretty
and their
detailed
confidentiality.
answer, Rishi, you have given how you're taking privacy and data security seriously for your corporates, because you are dealing with a lot of data, which is specific for which, quote unquote, is very sensitive. We move to the most interesting, important part, or not interesting, important part, which usually users are interested to know is what is the pricing structure of the service and softwares which you provide?
So if you look at pricing, we follow a subscription model. It's basically a software service.
Okay,
I mean
yeah.
SaaS. It's there are two components of the price. One is basically to onboard a customer. We end up spending time for our SMEs to identify what compliance are applicable. So an implementation fees or an onboarding fees, and this depends upon the size of the company, depending upon number of locations, number of entities that we are onboarding onto our platform. And second is our subscription fees, which is a monthly subscription fees broadly payable in advance on a quarterly or a half yearly basis. Now this subscription fees also cover four broader components. One is the product license. Second is basically the cloud cost, that amount of data that will be stored, we will be storing for customers. Then we have support. So we constantly support our customers with respect to any user queries, tool issues, or anything else that they want on a day-to-day basis with respect to the legal requirements. And then there is a tech support, wherein technology upgradations happens. We use Microsoft Stack, so there are changes to Microsoft Stacks, that all the technology costs that we have to incur to maintain our existing products. So these are four combined costs that goes into in defining one cost, which is the monthly subscription fees for
Okay,
corporates.
so if I give you an example for an understanding, because we need to have some range here, that there is any cosmetic manufacturer, one factory, but supplying throughout India.
So it doesn't really matter. Where do you supply?
Okay,
More importantly, the entire pricing is dependent on the number of entities and the number of
okay,
locations. Our pricing is also not dependent upon the number of users
okay,
which a company create.
okay.
So it's all depending upon the volume and quantum of
So, for
locations and
example,
entities that is
one
getting
factory
onboarded.
manufacturing they have, one legal entity they have. We're talking in terms of SMEs here. So,
SME,
approximately what cost they have to. We are talking about the compliance tracking. We're not talking about the
correct,
compliance fees here because that would be different. But what will be your
correct.
assess?
Well, looking at, one factory, one corporate office for one entity is a very small, complexity
Yeah.
perspective. So, we bare minimum that we have been charging today is starting range from 20,000 rupees per month.
Okay.
That will include all four components of the cost that I just
Yeah.
mentioned.
Okay. If we talk about in perspective professionals who are supporting SMEs, they're using your software. Because for MSMEs and SMEs, that becomes a major supporter for compliances, tracking and following up and taking care of that. If they use your software, the costing for these MSMEs can be managed, can be reduced when there, because there's a one service provider, he's servicing many MSMEs.
It should. So, see, for the service providers, I mean, this tracking utility is not relevant from a compliance tracking perspective. I have not seen much service providers taking up the entire gambit of compliance services. Right? There are specific service providers or broader specific regulators. Let's say you have labor consultants who is focusing only on labor laws. You have tax consultants or finance consultants, chartered accountancy firms who takes care of the direct tax and indirect taxes. I have recently seen consulting firms take up the overall management of compliances using technology. So not still prevalent and available in, but these are new avenues of businesses for service providers where they can give the entire comfort of end-to-end compliances more from a tracking perspective and not from an execution perspective. Right? The execution still can be outsourced. Labor laws can be outsourced to a labor consultant. Finance laws can be outsourced to a CA firm. But from a management perspective and reporting perspective, and end-to-end tracking can be managed by a consulting firm. That is one way where our tracking software can be utilized by service providers, not necessarily reducing the cost. But our labor product, let's say if you look at, if a labor law service is provided by a labor consultant, currently they are not using any technology. They have to continue to hire a lot of staff when they increase the number of customers there. So efficiency is extremely low. They're all person dependent. There, when they start adopting to Regtech platforms, and we do have labor consultants today using our labor law automation platform, where at a click of a button, every compliance gets created. Definitely, basically, you're just paying, I would say, 1/10 or lesser the cost that you end up spending when you do it manually. Right? From a subscription perspective, also, if you subscribe to a product like ours, the amount of salary that you have to pay to manage all the compliances for one customer, you'll end up spending 1/10 of the overall cost of that salary. So definitely, will it reduce cost or will it actually just increase profits is the question that a labor consultant will talk about. But it will definitely make them more competitive. Even if they have to actually charge lesser, they'll still end up making more profits when they continue to actually service their clients.
Got it. Great. If we talk about the highlights of the product, what are the key features and functionality of your compliance tracking software which your client just love and hence become your repetitive customers?
As a compliance officer, I do not want to run against multiple users and multiple departments. I need to get a one-click view, which is a real-time view of what's going on in the company. That's the highlight for the platform. At a click of a button or on your mobile phones, you have a clear view of the overall statuses, number one. Second, since there are a lot of users within the company who are responsible for doing different compliances, as a compliance officer, if I'm not picking up a platform, I keep chasing them. Have you done it? You're supposed to do this compliance. All of this is supported by technology now. Automatic reminders, automatic escalations, keep going it to different hierarchies. Now compliance officers know, who has not done what, and multiple emails have been sent to the performer on the ground as well as department heads, and if required to management as well. So it's basically helping on the ground the team to actually do the compliance as well, in the sense on a timely manner. Now reporting is very important. So I think the kind of reports that we generate is absolutely great. Automatic reports in graphs, charts, data, table, colorful reports. It makes a lot of sense to present these reports as it is to board as well. So earlier, I end up spending a lot of time, let's say as a compliance officer, creating beautiful reports on compliances for my management. One important feature that we have is automatic reports, which can be presented as it's.
Got it. So now, is there a way that your software supports clients in regulatory updates and changes because this regulatory changes keeps happening?
That's very important. Ongoing changes on a day-to-day basis. If you look at it for a year, there would be over 5,000 plus legal updates across India. Now, for any company who adopts a technology platform, if you're not providing updates to them, it's basically a static repository which becomes irrelevant over a period of time. So we have to ensure that regulatory changes in the law across central laws, state laws, and municipal corporation laws are provided to the customers. Now we do it via technology as well. Internally we have designed a platform which scans through all government websites. On a day-to-day basis, it scans over 2,200 plus government web pages thrice a day. and on a real time basis, if there is a change or a new notification, it picks up that notification and allots it to a lawyer internally, who there is a dedicated team who manages all of that. So all of this help us actually not only look at 2200 plus government websites, but also intimate our customers with respect to changes in the law within 24 to 48 hours. So that's the quickest turnaround time ever we have seen, where within 24 hours you can actually see a legal update coming on your email box, or 48 hours max, depending upon if an update gets published late Friday. And a lot of ministries today actually publish it after working hours, so that it's not, you know, impacting the overall servers that they have. So maximum next day or maximum on
So this
Monday.
is very nice, which is you are saying you are using tech and human expertise both. You're using tech to serve all the updates and then taking through a cross verification through the in-house lawyers to send it to your all the subscribed clients. And these are the changes in the laws which has happened in last 24 hours or 48 hours. Wow.
Absolutely. And what we also have ensured from an architecture perspective, that sending every update to every customer or every user doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Right? Finance is not really bothered about what's changing in labor laws.
Okay.
So product is also configured in a way that a system identifies a user,
Oh,
identifies what is relevant for this user, segregates it and sends the relevant items only to the respective
interesting.
user.
So if we talk about now the industry of RegTech in India, how many companies would currently be, if we talk about technology provider like SES and all those things in RegTech would be existing in India?
It's a nascent industry, as I
Yeah.
mentioned early on in our conversation. Till 2013, until the Companies Act of 2013 took shape and became live, compliance was more of a support function in the country. Boardrooms hardly ever engaged in compliance conversations. Governance, risk, and compliance was not very well understood. The sophistication, the maturity requirements around compliance was very low. The large tone from the top was चलता है होता है देख लेंगे मैनेज कर लेंगे जब होगा तब देखा जाएगा. All of these were contributing to not enough executive bandwidth being spent on compliance as a function. If you look at what's happened in the last few years, the law of the land has become stricter. There is greater teeth in the law. Social media has become rampant. One minor misdemeanor, inadvertent non compliance, shows up on social media within no time. A bad experience of a client is on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram within minutes. Ability to contain damage being unleashed because of non compliance on social media platform is not there. They have democratized the flow of information. You can't just manage bad information easily anymore. Board members are independently accountable for compliance and risk management. There are provisions for criminality and jail term for KMPs and board members. And I haven't come across a single board member who wants to be on a board of the company where he or she does not have an assurance of compliance and can eventually land him or her in jail. So all of these have contributed in the last few years, Tripti, to enhanced understanding and sensitization around compliance function, and hence regtechs have now started becoming more and more important in the corporate lexicon. Your question around how many such companies are there, handful of companies are there, because this is not just about technology. You need deep understanding of the law of the land, your ability to manage the stock, and your ability to track the flow has to
Got
be
it.
there embedded in the system. You need to have lawyers. Our company today has over 70 lawyers
Oh,
who
wow.
live and breathe compliance on a day to day basis. So, this is a complicated function. A may versus must, shall versus should are interpreted differently in law. The context of India and regulatory enforcement in India is required. India has a very nuanced compliance framework between union, state, and local body laws. Procedures change, formats are different, duties and rate structures are different, procedures to do certain things are different in different states. Lot of regulatory updates still come in local languages with available translations and so on and so forth. So
Got it.
that's really where the complexity comes from. A small percentage of India Incorporated is using these platforms. My guess, without having any numerical basis to it, is under 10% of the companies who can use these products are using them right now. But we are seeing a significant proliferation of demand coming from the corporate India for
Got it.
advancements in governance, risk, and
How much
technology
this compliance
solutions.
management system, management segment, I would say, ready for automation in terms of acceptances by government and regulatory bodies and software and tech capability?
Government has been displaying a phenomenal amount of wish and desire to digitize India. Numerous digital public infrastructure projects have been underway. The way government responded to proliferation of COVID virus during the pandemic is extremely commendable. Within a span of 2 to 3 weeks, our ability to put together apps like Arogya Setu is just mind blowing. Being able to track where the virus originated and traceability of it spreading through various people with their Aadhaar number is non trivial. Our ability to generate COVID certifications, which were auto generated, completely traceable by people's Aadhaar number, playing between JAM, Trinity, which is the Janadhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, is absolutely mind blowing in the country. So, government has been doing a splendid job when it comes to creating digital public infrastructure. It has shown fantastic outcomes. Doing all of this in a country like ours is not easy. So I think government has its heart in the right place, and with the direction and the speed at which things are moving, I am sure when we look back 10 years from now, world will
Absolutely.
look like a
I'm
very
saying
different
not
place
even
for India.
10, just 5 years. The speed things are changing. Within 1 year, with ChatGPT, so much changes we are seeing. Within 1 year, when the COVID came, we saw so much changes. Yes, no doubt, the speed is very fast. One interesting thing I want to know, what problem your clients are facing for which there is no software existing? I'm talking about your area of interest, which you would wish to make it something, bring some solution in the future.
Tripti, for example, only two of the seven categories of compliances our company has fully automated so far. Now, there are large regulators such as RBI, such as UGC, and many others. I'm not going to name all of them. They have fairly complex regulatory requirements. They regulate large number of banks, financial institutions, maybe IRDIs for insurance, and so on and so forth. The whole operation to manage the workflows, the entire statutory requirement leading to creation of the right compliance document in an automated mode requires deep thinking, lot of re-engineering, and deep investments on part of government as well as the private sector. As you see, a number of government departments are redoing their technology and creating version 2.0 and 3.0. We recently saw income tax embarking on a new income tax portal. We have seen significant technology changes in the MCA portals. Obviously, some stabilization teething issues are still rampant, but they have been investing in putting technology together. We have seen similar intent come from exchanges and SEBI as well. So all of these are indications that along the way these platforms are going to mature, but similar investments are required in private sector to deepen understanding of their
Hmm.
processes, systems, and codify them so that automation can happen. So I don't think we are anywhere close to declaring victory. Last 10 years we have spent in building a lot of technology, but I can characterize it as scratching the surface. I think another 10 years of solid work is required to truly
The
transform
way
this industry.
all these regulators are moving, government is moving, I'm sure a lot is lined up for you to work upon and provide to your clients. That's what I carry from these conversations today. Interesting and little heavy might be for some of the clients because compliance and governance cannot be light subject. It is always a heavy subject, serious subject, uh, but it is something we cannot avoid. It's just like an antivirus is must for your laptop or computer. Following compliance is also very, very critical. in all the areas of businesses corporate has to do. And MSMEs and SMEs has to understand this very, very deeply, that Chalta Hai will not take them to the next level of growth now. Things are different. Traceability is much, much easier and much faster nowadays. So you cannot skip and hide. You have to follow the processes and the laws of the land. So thanks a lot, Rishi and Sandeep, in this aspect. Would love to know something, on the personal aspect. One thing which about each of you, which social media people don't know about you.
So I don't think photography is rampant on social media. I put a lot of work whenever I can, but I do play tabla. I've been learning tabla for quite some time. In the past, I was leading Speak Meke organization during my college days at a national
Wow,
level.
wonderful. So while on the left brain is working on the compliance and regulatory, tabla and music and classical is working on your right brain to make you on the sage side. Wonderful. What about Sandeep? Something which social media doesn't know about Sandeep.
Past couple of years, I've been spending some time with Rotary
Hmm.
Foundation, weekends as well on several service projects that we pick
Oh,
up in Pune and
wow.
around on various topics. I think one of a large projects that we did was Asmita, daughter empowerment, collated close to a couple of crores from corporates, and then in close to 6 states, the entire Rotary team managed for over 10,000 girls student.
Wonderful. This is a very, very noble cause, and it's definitely cause can be any, and you have picked up the girl child. That's wonderful. So now let's move to the last and the end part of the section of today's podcast, where we ask to our guest, please share some topmost guiding principles for entrepreneurs.
So I can probably share a
Sure.
couple of items, Tripti, which I would certainly want to advise entrepreneurs. First, solve a problem that is worth solving, right? A lot of entrepreneurs are so married to a given idea that they don't realize that that problem is a problem in their own head. That's not a problem faced by MSMEs and other entrepreneurs or fellows out there. So before you decide to go invest a lot of time trying to solve a problem, validate whether it's a problem worth solving. Because if that is not a problem worth solving, you will end up creating a solution that actually no one wants to buy. So that's the first and the most important thing that I would want to share with entrepreneurs. Second, don't engage in the 99% there syndrome. What I mean by that is majority of the entrepreneurs, especially the ones who come from a tech background, they are always thinking that my product is almost 99% there, it's still not ready for prime time. Let me add this one extra feature and it will become ready. And I've mentored many of these startup founders, and I realized that that 99% syndrome keeps pushing the goalposts further and further. They never think of creating a minimum viable product, hitting the market. They always think, if I add one more feature, I think the product will become perfect. And in my opinion, there is no perfect product. That perfect product in your own head has no value, because unless your customers start using it and unless the positive feedback loop starts, you will never know where your product roadmap needs to be. The third thing that I would want to tell entrepreneurs is, if you can't sell, then even the best product that you may have created is of no value. So, all entrepreneurs need to eventually develop a sales and marketing muscle. Our vice chairman, Mr. Manish Sabarwal says CEO is the chief revenue officer. You need to show your face to your clients. You need to be willing to take the criticism of your product and service. You need to go with your eyes and ears open in front of clients, take their feedback, bake it into your operational product, technology, and other strategies. And that's how you enter a positive spiral of quality. And last item, be financially savvy. Most entrepreneurs, they don't fully understand financials. They don't understand that everything worth doing takes more time, more energy, and more effort than originally planned. and they don't plan for financials. They end up taking a lot of their personal finances, bringing that into the business. They don't plan for the right investments, right cash flow cycles, and eventually, even a good idea dies a natural death because it did not survive. It did not have the right ramp to see the light of the day. So, those are pretty much the 4 points that I would like to
Okay,
leave young
great.
entrepreneurs with.
So this brings an to our today's discussion. We have Sandeep and Rishi. Thanks a lot for your time. It was really an interesting conversation regarding compliances, governance, tracking compliances. I'm sure a lot of our listeners who comes from SMEs and startups, for them, compliances and governance still is a small part of their working. But when they're in the growth path, it is something they have to pay a lot of attention and get ready for it. So I'm sure they should learn about it and they should get into using it. And we can't miss the professionals who plays a critical part: chartered accountant, lawyers, uh, company secretarial, and in fact about lawyers. When we talk about so many different kind of lawyers who are supporting these SMEs, please take a note of this software which tracking for compliance is provided by Teamlease Regtech. So wonderful. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, Sandeep and Rishi. See you again in some other conversation.
Thanks, Rishi.
Thank you, Tripti, for having us over. We really enjoyed the conversation, and I should compliment you on doing these MSME talks. MSME is a backbone of the country's economy. They provide majority of the formal employment and informal employment as well in the country, and a lot of them, they end up staying dwarfs because they don't have the wherewithal of scaling via people, process, and technology. So I think you are doing a commendable job in helping them open their eyes and minds to the possibilities so that they can continue to scale and go beyond infants or dwarfs and become big and large.
Thank you, Rishi. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Sandeep. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rishi. It was a pleasure.
Hey, if you like the information shared on the podcast, why don't you give some good reviews to us on Apple or Spotify? Through this episode, I hope you would have got some answers to your queries and guidance for way forward. Do share your learnings from the episode, your feedbacks and suggestions. If you are an entrepreneur and have questions from experts or any particular topic or profile of expert you want to hear, or if you are an industry expert with MSME as a target audience, do reach out to us. Our link is given in the description. And at last, please do subscribe for MSME Talk podcast and don't forget to share the podcast link with your friends, family and network. Take care. Goodbye. Happy to share MSME Talk podcast enters peak ranking chart of 10th country in the Apple Podcast country level entrepreneurship category. If you are an expert or provide product or services to small businesses, MSMEs and startups, reach out to us to discuss showcase opportunity in MSME Talk. Contact details given in description.